to do an insight video today. I've just been sort of like connecting in and linking in with like the energy this morning. It's a beautiful energy, and it's all around sort of like this morning. I'm connected into like I've been showing more and more around sort of like the universal law of correspondence today, and how sort of like how we can start to connect into that vibration. But it's how the vibration connects one to our one to the spiritual energy and like the light frequencies of like the sixth dimension, but also like how we start to open up as a channel for that. But it's also talking about like integration of like the spiritual light, the energy. So when we open up as a channel, what we start to do is we start to then integrate um, that sort of creation source energy within our physical bodies. And when we start to sort of connect into that, then we start to vibrate with it, but we start to express it. And it's also again, it's sort of like it's a lesson that we're not sort of separate, that we're open to that energy, that source energy all the time. But it's also talking about sort of the universal law of correspondence and how this works is like this light, this energy, this frequency, and it's like this concept of inner and outer world. But it's also in the sense they was like discussing. They put it in sort of practical terms where they're talking about sort of like like architecture. You build a house. Well, with this sort of inner sort of like correspondence, you build consciousness, and consciousness is this awareness, this understanding that that you shape, you create your reality, and the external reality is only a reflection of like your inner source energy. um, and when you start to sort of like sit in consciousness where you connect to things of the past or the future, then you're not present, you're not with that source energy. But what you're also doing is you're also recreating scenarios, and you're creating events. But some of these events are like that they haven't happened yet because they're in the future. But they're in the future because what you're creating now in this moment is starting to manifest. But like future doesn't really exist. But what it does, when we sit there and look at the future and we create it in this moment, what we do is we create anxiety, or we create um, attachment to an outcome. Um, but that we're creating it in this second. And again, this is part of like creation, and this is part of sort of like consciousness, and this is part of our spiritual energy. So when we're starting to look at things in the past, and we go back to them, then we're recreating them in the present. But we're also doing that as well by being in this present moment, and we're looking at the future. Then we're creating um, challenges, and we're creating sort of like obstacles for the like in this present moment for the future, and we're attaching to an outcome. And when we're doing that, we're separating ourselves from this moment, this energy, in this time, which is where our pure creation and pure creative source um, is vibrating and working. So this is why it's really important to stay present as well. But the inner world of correspondence also sort of like connects us to our light energy, our light source. But it also then allows us to become more sort of like aware, and more sort of like um, aware, but also sort of like we connect to like a higher consciousness, that we start to understand that the inner world and the outer world are in perfect union. They're in perfect harmony, they're in perfect oneness again. So in this sense, it's like when you're in your source energy, and you're in that universal law of correspondence, it's perfect union. So what you're creating now on the inside is being created on the outside. So when you start to realize that and understand that, then you start to realize that actually, like I said, you are the architect of your reality, of your consciousness that you're building right in this moment. And everything you're thinking and feeling is being created, but it's also being projected by you. And the universal law of correspondence tells you this. So once we start to realize that, then it starts to connect more into some other universal laws. Like you've got the universal law of oneness. So the universal law of correspondence tells you that the inner and the outer world are not separate. They're sort of they're existing and happening in this moment at this time in this same vibration. So it's telling you, but also when you're in the universal law of correspondence, you also are aware that you have source energy and you're this source light, and that in that way you open up as a channel, and then you open up to connect to source energy, but source energy and your higher aspect of self that lives and is connected to that source energy. So like the higher self is this, or your infinite self is this, your light, your energy that still is part of you, that is existing in, like, connected to source in the source realms, which is like this six-dimensional reality. And when you open up to that and you understand that, then the channel to your higher self and the higher understanding opens up. But what happens then is it starts to allow the universe to flow into your human body, and then your human body then starts to activate, and it starts to vibrate on a frequency where it's connected to your spiritual bodies, or your spiritual sort of energy, which is like your higher self, which is this aspect of self that's open to this infinite consciousness, this infinite design. And you realize that the way things work, they work in perfect harmony. Like everything needs to be open, and everything needs to be flowing and vibrating in harmony. And this needs to be the same in your life as well. But what happens then is you start to open up, and you start to realize that you know you're, by being in your source energy, in your inner world, you're vibrating in that source energy, and you're creating in every thought, every second of every emotion, of every experience. And you start to realize that all you need to do is just remain in that light. And when you're in that light and you vibrate in that way, then you can start to sort of like create like a life, but also like a frequency of harmony, a frequency of balance, and a frequency of connection and union. um, and, and this is the universal law of oneness, that everything is existing and vibrating as one vibration, all at the same time, even the spirit world and everything around us. So the whole of the physical reality is one vibration that's vibrating at the same time, which is all source energy, also source energy that's vibrating and existing. And you're sort of vibrating with that in perfect union as well. So you've also got like the universal law of inspired action, which talks about communication, it talks about intuition. So that works in perfect union with the universal law of correspondence, because the source energy connects to you and you open up as a channel, and then that channel opens up, and you start open up to your infinite self, or your higher self, which is connected to the source energy. And what you can start to do then is open up to the spirit world, and the masters and the angels. And what you're doing then is you're connecting into them, and you're becoming part of that infinite source energy, which is all these realms, all these energies, all these dimensions, all these vibrations, these frequencies that happen at once. And when you become aligned to that, you become aligned to this infinite source of energy, this infinite source of light. uh, and this is like this is like the power of creation. This is the source of creation, and each and every one of us has that in us. And universal law of inspired action is when you can open up and you can be connected to your to the infinite source of energy, the infinite source of wisdom, the infinite source of insight. And this is happening all around us, and this is how the guides work, and this is how the angels work. They're connected with us. And when we open up our channels and we start to integrate it in our physical bodies, and we start to become that light frequency, that light energy, and when we're starting to walk as that, and we start to be that energy, then we are then sort of like walking as spirits on the earth. But we're also then opening our channels up to the infinite realms, where these universal teachers like the Great White Brotherhood lives, and sort of send frequencies and integrate information and intuition from the spirit world into our consciousness within the physical body. And this is what's happening at the moment. Everything is about consciousness. It's about our consciousness expanding, individually, and it's also about the consciousness of the planet, because all consciousness is this living in energetic sort of like vibration. And as we start to open up our consciousness and we become more spiritually aligned and in tune, then what we start to do is we start to then bring a different state of consciousness to the planet, but that brings a different vibration of energy and light. And then, so you'll see like the plants and the trees will respond to that consciousness. You know, everything is affected by the consciousness. The weather, the planet, the seas, everything is affected by the vibration and the frequency on this planet. And that's the consciousness of us as spiritual beings, and that's why it's so important that we open up our consciousness and become this collective consciousness, because what we can do is we can shift and change the energy frequency and the energy vibration on the planet. And when we start to do that, then it will shift and change, one, how the planet is, because it will be vibrating in a different frequency. It'll be vibrating as a different, the spiritual frequency, and it will start to grow, develop, and evolve. And what we can create, and that's where this sort of notion again of heaven on earth comes from. That when we're at a conscious level where we have an understanding about unity, harmony, and we create in a way that's more aligned with the universal law of oneness, then we create a new frequency and a new vibration on the planet. And the planet and the energy then will create a different sort of reality by the energy that's on here, and that will shift and change thoughts. Um, it will change thoughts. Like so, like the systems that we have at the moment are very much around still the 3D reality, which is around materialism, and it's about the outer world. And a lot of us live in the outer world, where we sort of like see that as the true reality. When we start to become in a more conscious way, where we're connected to the light and the energy and the frequencies of our inner world, which is the universal law of correspondence, which is what that teaches us. We start to see that we can vibrate and we can integrate and open up as channels to start to receive that spiritual insight, that energy. The universal source, the perfect design, has got all this information, this insight, this energy that's around us, and all we have to do is open up to it, because we're natural receivers of that. We are natural receivers of that frequency, because we are that frequency. You know, that was where we were, like as light workers or spiritual beings. We were born in that light, and that's what we go back to, is that light. So this reality in this time is about awakening to that, and consciousness is so important, because the more conscious we become, the more we start to vibrate on a frequency that, one, shifts and changes our own reality and our own life, but it also then shifts and changes the reality of the planet, and then as the reality of the vibration of the planet changes, then the reality changes on the planet. And then what starts to come in is like new inspiration, new ideas, new understanding, new awareness, new ways of being, all that kind of stuff. And that's what shifts us, and that will shift us more into a spiritual reality, but also back to a spiritual community where we'll be connected to these infinite realms and these masters and the angels. And this is what this time's about, and this is what the message is about today. So the universal law of oneness is this infinite vibration, that nothing's separate and everything's existing and coexisting at the same time. So every thought, every feeling, every sort of emotion and event that we come across, all has an impact. It has an impact, one, on our own individual life, but it also has an impact on the planet's life. But also it sort of energy, you know, energy is never destroyed. It just changes. It just changes states. It shifts from like one state of being to the next. It's sort of like it just transmutes from one state to the next. Again, and this is about the universal law of transmutation and transformation. And again, this connects to Saint Germain. It's about, again, energy is the building block of all things. You know, it's consciousness, it's reality, it's reality. It's the physical reality. It's the spiritual reality. It's the infinite reality. It's energy. It's everything. It's the one sort of like constant in the whole of like the universe, the source energy. It's the one constant, and we need to become more conscious of our own energy and our own frequency. But I was also, like, when I was linking into it this morning, I was being sort of shown and guided as well, that our bodies are now, as they activate and as they change, they're becoming this more energetic sort of like bodies. They're not physical, they're these energetic light bodies. And experiences and events that are going on, we should be using our bodies to see what the vibrate how that vibration of any event, any person, any sort of like, yeah, any event, any person, any experience, and see how it vibrates with you. If it's not aligned with your vibration, then the first thing you need to do is become aware of that, and then the second thing you need to do is realign it. So if something hits your vibration and it takes it out of harmony, then you need to bring it back into harmony. And this is like the universal law of, like, this is like, again, it's about sort of like realignment. Again, this connects to transmutation and transformation, which is again learning and knowing that we can sort of change and shift our reality, but also shift and change our will at any time. We can use the universal law of transmutation and transformation, that we can just shift. We're not stuck in anything. And again, this sort of like notion of like, no present, like no past and no future. Again, when we're in this present, we know that we have that creative source energy and that power in that moment just to shift and change something. So the universal law of correspondence seems to be one of the ones that they were really sort of like trying to guide me to today, which is more about this being in this vibration, and being able to sit in it, and sort of like knowing that the outer world is just energy, and the outer world only sort of like responds to whatever vibration, what frequency that you're projecting, that you know from your source energy. We all have a source vibration, and that source vibration is our creative essence, our creative energy, and when we realize that how we use that energy is what creates our reality, like our experiences, our emotions, our interactions, it creates everything. We start to see that there's this flow of this beautiful source energy that's in each and every one of us, and how we apply our consciousness to it is what creates our reality. So we really need to sort of like understand. That's the reading for today.